All right, and welcome back to the forecast card. Unfortunately, losing day. Had some really good CLV in 4 of the 5 games, but it didn't end up mattering. Um, about minus 0.6 units on the day, taking half a unit on each play. Ended up green today because I went 2-0 in NBA. Debating I might start making videos in NBA. I just don't force plays in NBA. I usually take 1 to 2 plays tops. Sometimes I play nothing. Sometimes I play one game. Um, so it's kind of weird to have a video on it. The spreadsheet has them every day in the description if you wanted to see what I'm betting on NBA and every day. But yeah, we'll see. Maybe in the playoffs I'll whip out the videos there. But leans went 2-2, nothing crazy. Really sad. I was North Florida was my last minute ad, and I replaced it from Indiana State, which was basically very sweat free. Which would have given us a profitable day, but it is what it is. Let's move on to the slate for tomorrow. All right, heading on to the first game, we have Southern versus Florida A&M. Now, to preface, most of the games that I'm betting today are all kind of disgusting. I really have no desire to bet any of the 3 interesting games with Kansas, UCLA, Duke. I don't really care much to bet those games. The lines seem pretty sharp to me, and I think anything could happen. So just to preface, these games are all kind of stinky. Don't mind if you don't want to tail, but I do quite like these spots today, a bit more than I did yesterday. Now, Southern versus Florida A&M. If you look at their records straight up, you obviously think Southern's a much better team, and they definitely are. They're 18-10 on the year, 13-2 in conference play. Florida A&M 13-14 on the year, 10-6 in conference play. But the biggest thing when it comes to SWAC teams is the home advantage is for some reason is significantly more massive than in basically any other conference. Now, if you look at Southern, they're 18-10 on the year. All 10 of their losses have come on the road. They're 10-0 at home and 8-10 on the road. Florida A&M, on the other hand, 4-12 on the road, 9-2 at home. If you just kind of look at it, like we're getting 3.5 here with a Florida A&M team who I think their season stats are completely destroyed because of how terrible they played to start the year. Obviously, they had to start the year playing some really, really tough non-conference play. Like they started the year having to play TCU, SMU, Maryland, Florida, Clemson, Utah, BYU. Like they had a gauntlet to start the year, and that just completely destroyed all of their base stats. And Southern hasn't really had to play nearly as hard of competition. Their hardest team they had to play was Iowa, Texas A&M, USC, Nebraska. Those are the 4 teams they had to play, and Ole Miss. Still some pretty solid teams, but I don't think it's been nearly as tough as Florida A&M's teams they had to play, especially what we know now about each of these teams. Now Southern, they're on their 3rd game of a road trip. Both these teams are only going to have 1 day's rest, where Florida A&M got to stay at home, Southern on the road. Florida A&M, they've been much better. Starting in January 18th, they're 5-10. They're 10-3 on the year. They've been pretty much locked in. Southern, basically the same record. I think they have 1 more win, 1 fewer loss. But Southern obviously crushed Florida A&M by like 34 points last time these 2 teams played. But I'm telling you, home advantage means a ton. And I do think Florida A&M shows up for this game. This is not a tournament game. This is strictly a normal game. Florida A&M, since that loss against Southern, that's basically that started their hot streak. Southern, on the other hand, obviously they've been elite all year, especially as of late. But yeah, they're coming off a tough loss, pretty disgusting loss against Bethune-Cookman, a team they probably should have beaten. 3rd game of a road trip, Florida A&M, 2nd game at home. And if you look at their stats here, obviously Florida A&M has played Florida A&M has played a much harder schedule, and they're much better at home. Southern, yes, they've had the better schedule, the better record quality. They're a bit more consistent, but I think Florida A&M is going to limit their turnovers here. Southern probably is going to get to the line a ton, but they're one of the worst free throw shooting teams in all of college basketball, ranked 357th. I think Florida A&M is going to be able to start draining some threes this game. I think they're going to find some success on the mid range. Find some success also getting to the free throw line, where they're almost 10% better at free throw shooting than the Southern team. I think they can keep this game close. This game basically means nothing. I think Southern has locked up the number 1 seed. Florida A&M can only improve their seeding in this SWAC tournament coming up. Yeah, I really do like Florida A&M here. It's a really stinky line, especially after them getting completely crushed. But I do think they'd be playing a lot better. And if you look at their stats, it's just not really indicative of how well these two teams have been playing. At home, Florida A&M has a top 20 home advantage in college basketball. Southern plays much worse on the road. They fall almost 100 rating points. Last 5, both these teams have been playing pretty poorly. But Florida A&M, their biggest struggle, the teams they play the best against are these kind of mid-major teams like Southern. So I think they show up here in a really massive revenge spot. We're catching points with them at home in a basically meaningless third road game for Southern. Give me Florida A&M at home plus 3.5. All right, heading on to game number 2, we have Texas Southern head on the road to play Alcorn State. Now, Texas Southern on paper, they've been probably one of the better teams. I guess you could say in general in the SWAC. Historically, they've won this tournament a lot recently, but I do think Alcorn is just the better team this year. Texas Southern, obviously a much better defensive team, but Alcorn, where it matters, I think is going to have success. Alcorn, they shoot the 6th most mid-range shots in all of college basketball. 37% of their shots come from the mid-range. That's the place where they're going to have an advantage. That's what Texas Southern defends the worst. Alcorn State, they rely on forcing turnovers to get a lot of points. They're going to find success there against a Texas Southern team that does turn the ball over quite a lot. On the other side of the floor, obviously Texas Southern, also a team that shoots a lot of mid-range, the most in college basketball, with 40% of their shots coming from the mid-range. But again, I just don't think their offense is that great. The only way that they really score is off of turnovers. And I think with them being on the road here and Alcorn being at home, where they play much, much better, they're going to turn the ball over a lot less. I just really like this spot here for Alcorn. If you look at their power ratings at home, Alcorn top 15 home advantage in college basketball. They are basically 100 points better when they're playing at home. Texas Southern falls outside of the top 300 when they're playing on the road. If you look at their last 5, both these teams have been playing equally as well. They both play this caliber of team pretty equally. They both play down to their competition. And now we got Texas Southern coming off the second game of a road trip where they just got crushed by a pretty bad Jackson State team. Alcorn is going to be riding the home wave after a solid win at home against Prairie View. I think they're going to show up for this game. I believe these two teams have played, and Alcorn lost by 9 points on the road. These teams love their revenge spots. You can see them very consistently, especially when it comes to these divisional games. I think Alcorn shows up here. They don't turn the ball over as much. Texas Southern will struggle to score. Yeah, this is a Texas Southern team that lost to Arkansas Pine Bluff. And whenever I see any team lose to Mississippi Valley State or Arkansas Pine Bluff, I just assume that their floor is really, really low. And I think Alcorn here, who's been the better team as of lately, who demolished Arkansas Pine Bluff. They actually showed up big time in those basically free win games, what you could call them. Texas Southern, obviously they got the revenge and finally beat Arkansas Pine Bluff like they should have. But now after that win, they went on the road, got shit on by Jackson State by 15 points. Now they're only going to have 1 day's rest, playing Alcorn, who's been chilling at home, where they play much, much better. They haven't dropped a home game since early January, or late January, sorry. It was only a 5-point game against the best team in the conference, Southern. They barely lost at home to Florida A&M by 1 point. Even when they do lose at home, it's really close, and it's against much better teams than Texas Southern. So I think Alcorn is going to show up for this game. They're 4-0 in their last 4 home games. Texas Southern 1-3 in their last road games. I think Alcorn shows up here and wins this game outright. All right, heading on to game number 3, we have Nicholls heading on the road to play Lamar. Now, on paper, these teams are pretty equal, but the biggest difference here is that Lamar due for a lot more negative regression. They've been playing better than they should have this year. On paper, Lamar plays much, much worse at home. Nicholls plays much, much better on the road. If you look at their last 5 games, Nicholls being a borderline top 100 team, Lamar borderline top 200 team. yeah, this just seems like on paper this is a much better spot for Nicholls, especially catching plus 2.5. These two teams, when they did play, Nicholls actually lost that game by 4. Now we're getting Nicholls in a revenge spot in their second game of a road trip where they've been playing really well. They've won 8 of their last 10 on a 4-win streak, beating much better teams: Texas A&M, Corpus Christi, SFA, Lamar. Coming off 2 losses, playing some of their worst ball. They're coming off an extremely emotional loss against McNeese, where they almost beat the best team in the conference. Yeah, they probably had to work really, really hard to defensively to keep McNeese to only 68 points in that game. I think they're going to be exhausted with only 1 day rest. Nicholls already traveled, so they're going to be used to this road trip. They won 2 of their last 4 on the road. Their only losses are against much better teams like McNeese and NW State. And furthermore, if you look at this Nicholls team, I have this game that should really be at a pick 'em, but Nicholls obviously much better on the road and more consistent. They've been the better team all year. And matchup wise, Nicholls, they're going to force a lot of turnovers here against the Lamar team that doesn't take care of the ball. Nicholls is going to get to the line a lot this game. They're going to find some success from deep. On the other side, Lamar, they're a team that shoots mid-range near basket. They might find some success from the mid-range, but near basket, Nicholls is a top 100 team at defending. Nicholls does not turn the ball over at all. The one place Lamar may find some success is on the offensive glass. They are a much taller team, but again, Nicholls in the revenge spot. I think Lamar is really one of the only other teams that can catch up to them in the conference. I think they're gonna show up big time for this game. Yeah, I think this is a phenomenal spot for Nicholls' team, where they play better on the road, revenge spot, and just objectively a much better offensive team than Lamar. And Nicholls is due for much less regression than Lamar, so really love this spot for Nicholls, plus 2.5 on the road. All right, heading out to game number 4, we have Wichita State heading on the road to play North Texas. Now, these two teams have already played this year, and that was a 4-point win for North Texas. So I do like that fact that we're getting 8.5 points here with Wichita State in a revenge spot. Obviously, this time it's going to be on the road. But again, North Texas, they've been playing really well as of lately. They've come off 5 solid wins. Wichita State, up until their most recent loss against UAB, has also been playing really well, with wins over Memphis, FAU, Tulane. Yeah, and again, this Wichita State team is clearly a team that plays off of revenge, based off of their most recent games. Right? They played UTSA. They lost by 13, and then they beat UTSA by 5. They lost to South Florida by almost 20 points. Then they went and beat UTSA by 5. They lost to Memphis by 8, and then they went and played Memphis, beat them by 5. This team clearly, does hold revenge. They play much better in that revenge spot. And the fact that these teams played and Wichita State lost in a pretty close contest, I think they're gonna show up for this game. They're coming off a rough road loss, or home loss to UAB where they lost by 8. But both these teams haven't played for a while. They haven't played since Feb 27th, so they're gonna be well rested. It's not like an immediate turnaround like a lot of these teams that played on March 1st. And yeah, I think this is a good spot. If you look at these teams and how they play, this is kind of a really awesome matchup for Wichita State. Wichita State, really they only score in 3 ways. They shoot in the paint, they get offensive boards, and they get free throws. Those are their 3 primary ways of scoring. And these are all things that North Texas does struggle with. North Texas ranked 220th in the amount of free throws they give up to teams. That's going to be a problem here against a Wichita State team that does shoot quite a lot of free throws. The one thing that North Texas defends really well are, outside of the paint shots, so mid-range 3-point shots. It's not really the way that Wichita likes to score. They shoot 45% of their shots from in the paint, 30% from mid-range, 30% from 3. If they adapt and they shoot differently, Wichita State could probably just live in the paint, where they're obviously not that great, but they have much better offensive board action here. I think they're going to find success. They're top 100 in free throw attempts. And again, I think this is going to be a tough matchup. The only thing that North Texas does not defend well is the paint. They're ranked one outside of the top 150 in paint defense. Wichita not very good at shooting near basket, but because of the offensive glass opportunity and the fact that North Texas fouls a lot, I think this is a really good spot for Wichita State to just live in the paint this entire game. They got more momentum into this game. They play better on the road than North Texas does at home. North Texas, their team that on the other side, they like to shoot a lot of mid ranges, and that is something that Wichita State actually defends quite well, at least comparatively to what they defend in the other spots. They're not a very good 3-pointer near paint defense. But just in general, North Texas is not going to get to the line that much. Wichita State is a top 50 team in limiting your chances at the line. They're a top 100 team on their own boards. So a lot of places where North Texas likes to score, Wichita State just has the size to deal with them. So yeah, I just really love this spot. A revenge angle just before this American tournament. I think North Texas defends spots where Wichita State doesn't score. Yeah, and again, North Texas, they play a very slow game, catching 8.5 points in what I'm expecting to be a really low-scoring, close game against a Wichita's team that's going to be playing with revenge. I think they have a chance to potentially win this game outright. So give me Wichita State here, plus 8.5 on FanDuel. All right, heading on to our final game, we have Idaho versus Montana State. Now, these two teams have already played when Idaho was at home, and Idaho actually ended up winning that game. They beat Montana State by, I believe it was 5 points. Now, Montana State is, on paper, a significantly better team. Despite the fact that these teams have the same 13-7 record, Montana State is way better defensively than Idaho is. And offensively, they're about even. And now Montana, whenever a team is really good defensively, I love to bet them more at home than I would on the road, because that home crowd really does get you going when it comes to playing strong defense. And Idaho, despite the fact that they did beat Montana State, it was kind of a dirty game. Montana State shot really badly. Idaho played much better. I don't think it happens again. Montana State, I think they're going to find a lot of success basically everywhere that they shoot, especially from beyond the arc. The one thing that Idaho is good at is defending their own glass. They don't give up a lot of offensive opportunities, but that's not really somewhere where Montana State likes to score anyway. So that kind of advantage is going to go wasted a little bit. And on the other side, Idaho, they're a team that likes to shoot a lot of threes. Montana State is the top 100 3-point defense, and Idaho's 3-point shooting percentage drops 4 percentage points when they hit the road. They're already not that great of a 3-point shooting team. I expect they're going to shoot 20%, 25% statistically. Montana State has been ranked basically 100 points higher than Idaho in every single category. If you look at their power ratings between these two teams, Montana State has a top 75 home advantage. They play much better at home. Idaho plays a little bit better on the road, but if you look at their last 5 ratings, Idaho's been playing worse, if not equal to where they should be. Montana State is starting to move towards their true ranking around inside the top 200, and we're getting them in a spot here against a team that they should absolutely crush, based off who they typically play against. They play really good against awful teams. They play really good against really good teams, but they kind of suck against teams that are in the same sphere as them. Similar to Idaho, this is kind of the ranking where they struggle the most against. So yeah, I really do think we're getting Montana State here at a good price at home. Idaho really got lucky in their last match. We're getting Montana State back home after a solid road win with 1 day's rest. Idaho, going to be heading the road after a solid win against Weber State. They're going to be traveling 300 miles. The last 4 games they've played on the road, where they've had to travel over 200 miles. They've lost all 4 by 5 points, by 16, by 16, and by 12. They really don't play very well on the road compared to at home. Montana State, other than their loss against Montana recently, they've dominated home games. I wouldn't say dominated home games, but they won by 8, 5, 1 against teams that I think are better than Idaho. So I love this revenge spot for a Montana State team that is going to be playing with revenge and playing where they play the best. And yeah, this realistically is probably going to be their last game of the year. Yeah, it is their last game of the year. So I think they're going to finish off home. This is going to be their senior night, big final W at home against a team that beat them already. This is I think I'm gonna make this the lock. This is also Idaho's last game, but they're going on a road for one game. I don't think they're gonna be that worried. Probably locking in for the conference tournament to try to have some kind of run, but obviously they're one of the worst teams in the division, so probably won't happen. But yeah, give me Montana State. Lock for the for this game. All right, and that is everything for March 3rd. As you can see, these are the 5 leans that the model statistically does like. Has Florida Gulf Coast winning this game by 6.5. Has Eastern Kentucky. This game should be a pick'em. Has NC Central losing this game by 4. Has Prairie View losing this game by 11. And Weber State losing this game by 5. I'm personally not going to touch any of these because they're all disgusting games. But if you are interested, the leans have been doing pretty well. So that's everything for today. And thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate all the support. And hopefully I'm looking forward to March Madness coming up.